African. Truly African.
Nobody is going away with that there's something wrong with beauty. There's nothing wrong with beauty at all. Like I'm saying, be beautiful, but be beautiful your way, not in conforming or contorting or, to fit a certain mood.
They talked about me a lot, and then Monday I'm on radio and I'm doing it. Opportunity. Regardless of where you're coming from, things can change, right? And then you can get to where you probably haven't even prepared yourself to go.
So there's an unconscious bias against us as women from the beginning of time.
You would have been perhaps the best lab scientist, but because of your mindset of knowing that nurse equals woman, you immediately went to nursing, you immediately went to midwifery.
I'll take my third speaker, and she will be tackling branding and mannerisms. And she's the managing partner of Mahogany Consults. She's an author, head of programs, and lecturer at the School of Communication Studies, Wisconsin International. With a round of applause, a very big one.
Nobody is going away with that there's something wrong with beauty. There's nothing wrong with beauty at all. Like I'm saying, be beautiful, but be beautiful your way, not in conforming or contorting or, to fit a certain mold.
They talked about me a lot. And then Monday, I'm on radio and I'm doing it. Opportunity. Regardless of where you're coming from, things can change, right? And then you can get to where you probably haven't even prepared yourself to go.
So there's an unconscious bias against us as women from the beginning of time.
You would have been perhaps the best lab scientist, but because of your mindset of knowing that nurse equals woman, you immediately went to nursing, you immediately went to midwifery.
Okay, so as they get that ready, 15 years ago, I was in Quaffle Hall, Annex A, room 316. Yeah. I don't know if you still do it. A Vista will stand on the ground floor and shout, 316. And somebody will come to the balcony and check who it is. So this friend of mine came, 316. I came to the balcony and he asked me, Baba, are you in your room? Anyway, today we are tackling branding, and I would say personal branding, personal branding. So I want you to ask yourself this question. Am I a brand? Oh, ask yourself. I want to hear you asking yourself, am I a brand? Am I a brand? Then ask your neighbor, are you a brand? Are you a brand? So before we answer that question, I want us to look at this definition of mannerism. Mannerism. A habitual gesture or way of speaking or behaving. A habitual. And that's the word I want to draw your attention to, a habitual. And that's the question I want you to ask yourself today as we brand. Because the brand cannot be outside of your vision. Where am I going? Where am I going? What's my purpose statement? Where does my brand aspire to be? And so when you see somebody writing certain things on social media, advocating for something, they have a vision. They know where it is that they are going. And that's the first step in personal branding. You need to know where it is. You're not following blindly. Okay, somebody says to serve as a leader, live a balanced life, and apply ethical principles to make a significant difference. That is their vision statement. What is yours? Personal branding. What is yours? Now let's look at the next thing that we need to do if you are going to build a personal brand. What is your mission? The vision is where you are going, so that is the long term. And you are going to work gradually towards that vision. But before you get there, what are you doing? What are you doing currently to help you to get to that vision? And that is your mission in life. And you don't have to have everything sorted out. You don't need to know, oh, after school, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do that. Some people have it, some don't, and it's okay. It's all right. Some discover it as they move ahead. But I want you to have this at the back of your mind, that it is important to have a mission. And so as you go along the journey of life, at least you have this, and at every point in time, you are thinking about it, and you are wondering about it, and you are reading about it. And over time, that mission will become very clear to you. So you ask yourself, what am I supposed to be doing now? And how do I do it? Your mission statement, number 2. Number 2 on your assignment, your mission statement. All right. Let's move on. So these are also examples of some mission statements a few people have put together. It is my mission to live a life of honesty, integrity, and unconditional love, to never lose sight of what is most important, and to make the world a more beautiful place through art and my relationship with others. That's what they're going to do every day of their life. That's what they want to do. Now, beyond your vision and beyond your mission, I want you to think about values. You know, Guinness gave us 2 values that are most important to them, or very important to them now: inclusion and diversity. It's a value that they hold dear, and as a result of that value, they are pushing for programs such as Obaasima. Again, for you, what are your values? What does your brand believe in? What do you believe in? What are those things that you exist, for which reason you want to exist? Or what are those things that help you to pursue the vision that you have? What values underpin the work that you do? And really, I'm a business person, I'm an entrepreneur. And currently, if you are looking for a job, at least for myself, and I can speak for quite a number of entrepreneurs, we are hiring not just for skills, but for values. Because every organization should have values. And when I'm bringing you on board, my values and yours should be in sync. And so it is therefore important, and I'm glad we are going to be talking about preparing for an interview. There are times a brilliant candidate comes in, you interview the person, and after you realize that, the person won't fit into the values structure of this organization. So you should have values. You should have values. And what are these values? Pick them for yourself. Integrity, responsibility, resourcefulness. It's one of the values I hold so dear. Excellence. And all these examples that I have on the screen. And you don't just have values for having values' sake. You live by the values. You walk by the values. Then he would also, he would share the story. Oh, if you want this thing done, go to this company. They will do it for you. And over time, Mahogany Consult becomes known for the company that does A, B, C, and D. And I wouldn't have the opportunity to have the type of clients that I have today. Integrity. I'm just picking that value out of all the other values. Now, the worst part of personal branding is not practicing what you preach. Good looking, like all these lovely women here, and then you experience them one-on-one, and you're like, wait a minute, are these the same people I met at that program? That is inconsistency. And so if you're going to build a personal brand, you have to live by the personal brand. Else, that is not a brand. So for instance, how you receive people, how you talk to people, how you respond to people, both online and offline. You can't live a life online and another life offline. It has to be consistent. How do you present yourself, both online and offline? So why do you have to build a brand, or why become a brand? It helps you. It guarantees a certain level of quality or excellence for you, because you know where you're going, you know what it is that you have to do. You have values that you are living by every single day. And so there's nothing like inconsistency with you. It helps you to also create the right perception about who you are, because what you see is what you get. You are not faking. It also becomes a vehicle for promoting who you are and your expertise. When you are a brand, you showcase what you have. And consistently, people know you for who you are, and people know you for your expertise. And ultimately, ultimately, the reason why personal branding will help you is because ultimately you can make an impact. And for me, that's all I want to do. Make an impact. Make an impact in your life today. Make an impact wherever it is that I go, in my teaching, in entrepreneurship, in my writing. That is all. And that's what self-branding or personal branding will do to me. So let's round up. So if we are looking at personal branding, these three things you need to have at the back of your mind: a certain conscious behavior, your DNA, and being competitively different. All right? I'm just going to go through these very quickly. So a conscious behavior, this is consciously what you are doing. One, how do you work? How do you work? How do you work? Drop poor quality. Be excellent. Create new ways of doing things. Be innovative. Come up with ideas. Get training if you have to. Beyond school, you can always find, training manuals even online. They are not expensive, or some are even free. Have people you account to. Don't be a loner. Have somebody that you can speak to. And it's good to look up to somebody. It's not bad. You don't have to want to be like the person, but at least look up to somebody who inspires you. Now, you need to have a successful DNA. And this thing, when I say, I know it's very difficult, but you need to have the courage to change. You know that this attitude of yours, it is not. And it is difficult to change. It's even difficult to identify that attitude that has to change. But please, we need to get to that point where we have the courage to change. And I've spoken about values already. Have strong values. And lastly, you need drive. You need energy. You need drive. You need energy. Madam Petra Asamoah and I were talking about juggling, work and family. And if you get there, I tell you, it is not easy. If you're not driven and you don't have the energy, you might get tired and you might quit. So, being different. If you are building a brand, you need to be different. So you need to be brilliant at something. Yes, you have all these skills and all of that, but what is that one thing? And think about it. It's part of the homework. What is that one thing that I am brilliant at? Or what is that one thing I want to be brilliant at? Think about it. Because when you think about it and you note it down, you are going to get the required training, you are going to read more about it, and before you know it, you are brilliant at it. You are a brand. Collaborate with other brands. Collaboration is so key in our world now. Partnerships. Bringing people together, and I'm glad our second speaker spoke about working in teams. Don't be a loner. Work as a team or work with other people. So, you are a brand, mingle with brands. So now that you know that you are a brand, I want us to shout it now. I am a brand. I am a brand. I can't hear you. I am a brand. Are we brands today? Are we going to build our personal brands based on our vision, our mission, our values? All right, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Baba. And what she just taught us reminds me always of something that a friend of mine used to say. He said, everything you say or do represents your brand. So in branding, I remember a few years back when I was still young, we thought that branding was for only celebrities and important people. I'm sure there are people in this room who think that branding is only for dignitaries, celebrities. Am I wrong? And that you are a mere student and so branding is not for you. But today you've been taught that branding is for you. And in branding, One little message that I've always learned from a very good friend of mine is everything you say or do represents the brand. And Madame has explained it splendidly for us. Unfortunately, we were not able to do the test that she wanted to bring upon. We failed to tell her that we are tired of tests, even though school just resumed. And so we wouldn't be doing any tests here. But please let me inform you to be very interactive, because there are going to be some giveaways today. We have somebody from ATO Fabric seated here, and you think she's going to go scot-free. Definitely, she brought some goodies, and so there'll be questions and answers going on, and if you are lucky and very interactive, please, you may go home with a whole bag, or you don't believe me, to fill your entire wardrobe. So just have faith, be interactive, and enjoy the rest of the program. I'd introduce my next speaker. And she is going to be talking about how to prepare for a successful job interview. Very important. The job market these days is crazy out there. You don't know how many certificates you need to get a job. These days, from what our previous speaker just mentioned, you don't just go with skills. You don't go with only certificates anymore. They look further than that. And so you have to go fully prepared, armor yourself in trying to look for a job. And so it's important that we know exactly what the interviewers are expecting from every interviewee. And so the HR Director for Guinness Ghana, Mr. Audrey Achao, will be taking us through how to prepare for a very successful job interview. So let's welcome her with a very big round of applause.
Nobody is going away with that there's something wrong with beauty. There's nothing wrong with beauty at all. Like I'm saying, be beautiful, but be beautiful your way, not in conforming or contorting or, to fit a certain mold.
They talked about me a lot. And then Monday I'm on radio and I'm doing it. Opportunity. Regardless of where you're coming from, things can change, right? And then you can get to where you probably haven't even prepared yourself to go.
So there's an unconscious bias against us as women from the beginning of time.
You would have been perhaps the best lab scientist, but because of your mindset of knowing that nurse equals woman, you immediately went to nursing, you immediately went to midwifery.
Hello? 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 I can't hear you. I'm only hearing my own voice. Hello? Are you excited to be here today? So I'll join my colleagues who talked about their experience, campus experience. For me, it's nostalgia as well because I left campus about 17 years ago. And I was also in a Equafo, interestingly.
But my first year, I was patching in Volta. How many patchers do we have here? Plenty, I'm sure. Give you a wave. And it's interesting that after 17 years, I have to come back here and actually have a conversation that sort of set me up for my career. So whilst I was sitting here, I was just smiling to myself because a few years back, 17 years is a few years, isn't it? I was sitting right here and I had a similar session where we had people from industry talking to us, about what it takes to be there, how to prepare for it, and when you go there, basically whipping up excitement and preparing us towards it. So thank you, Amma, for the opportunity. And of course, Guinness Ghana for partnering with us. So not to belabor the point, I think I'll try to make do with the 15 minutes where we can also, I'll take your questions as well because I believe that some of you would have questions coming in. I'll try to make it as practical as possible and also to share experiences with you. So what is an interview process about? It's part of a recruitment and selection process. So typically in HR, we have our full strategy of what it is that we want to achieve, right, to support the business objectives. And the recruitment and training, the recruitment and selection process is part of it in the sense that it helps us to identify the right talents that we are looking for. So look at the number of you here. And then imagine I'm looking for one administrative assistant and all of you apply. How do I identify the best talent out of it? So that's the process that we go through. It's more to make sure that we have a systematic approach towards selecting the right candidates for the right job. And so we're going to take our time to just look through what it means for us. As I already said, it's like one person just sticking their head in and trying to look amongst the crowd and find the best candidates without any feelings to it. So it's not an easy job that we have to do. But for us, what we believe in is that recruitment can be both within the organization and outside. So this process that we go through as far as interview is concerned, it actually happens in the organization. When opportunities come, sometimes we'll focus on those within, and sometimes we'll go out. So when we go out, what are the things that we'll look out for? We have to make sure that we are defining what is the role that we are looking for in the first place. There has to be a vacancy. And so a particular role has to be vacant, and that particular role has to be advertised, which is what you would see. And there are different ways through which we advertise these roles. And when we advertise the roles, we have to make it such that it's attractive for you to want to apply. So how do we sell the organization? Through the advertisements that we put out there. And then, of course, once we get the applications coming through, what is the process that we follow to ensure that we are selecting the right candidate for the job? So that is where the interview process comes in. So it is part of the assessments process. Now, in terms of the sourcing channels, there are so many of them, and now with technology, it's even, better, I would say. So before, you would see that fresh graduates will finish school and be working from one office to the other, knocking on doors and giving out their CVs. Today, it's not the case. You can send it via email. You can go on to the different company websites or portals and put it there. There are recruitment agencies, you can go through them. You can go on LinkedIn. So the options are wide. Even sometimes we put it on our WhatsApp status. So there are lots of options or sourcing channels, as we call it, where we actually put these adverts out. Sometimes we even come to church and announce it. So the options are wide for us this time around. What it then means is that for you as an applicant, you need to look sharp, as we used to say, and I think it's still relevant. You have to look sharp because you need to know where these adverts will go to, and then you make sure that you are going there and finding the right role that maps to the skills that you have. When we are doing the selection, there are a number of things that for us as an HR, team we would look at, and not just HR team, but together with the hiring manager. So, you know, when it comes to recruitment, it's not just the HR that will sit down and say, we are taking this person. The line manager who is recruiting or the supervisor has a big role to play as well. And there are a number of things that we look out for, just to make sure that we are being, we have a standardized approach to it, and then also making sure that we are being fair. So one of the things that we typically would look at is experience. And I'm sure you're all wondering by now that we are just graduating from school. How can you be talking about experience? But it's relevant in the sense that whilst you're in school, there are a number of things that you do. Some of us go for internships. Some of us have company, our parents have companies that when we go on holidays, we work with. Some of us have side businesses or side hustles that we do. And we try to manage that business in a way. So the experience is varied. Some of us are part of some extracurricular activities. So the experiences is wide. We look at the educational qualification. So what is the minimum qualification we are looking for the role? We look at the leadership behaviors or the behavioral competencies. So we are looking to see, our sister talked a lot about the values. She also talked a lot about the kind of, what do you stand for? What are you bringing to the table? So what are the behaviors that you would, or the competencies that you demonstrate? We would like to see that as well. We want to see your potential for growth. So if we bring you in today as an administrative assistant, do you have the potential to grow to become a finance director tomorrow or an HR director tomorrow? These are the things we look out for. We are not recruiting for today only, because the idea is for the organization to grow beyond where they are. And so we would not want to bring somebody who will just come and stay as administrative assistant, no ambition, no plan to move beyond that level and just get stuck. You'll be blocking the way. So we always would look out for somebody who is going to come in and can grow within the organization. So that's what we mean by potential. And of course, motivation. I think that our second speaker talked a lot, and it was the last thing that she talked about on motivation. You need to be self-motivated. What is making you go for that job, that particular job? Why do you want it? Why do you want to work with that company? Is it just because you want a job? So what is your motivation? What is driving you to do the things that you do? And that is part of all the things that we look out for. So it's a rounded thing that we look at. So we are not just looking at the job. We are not just looking at your experiences or your qualifications. Sometimes we get carried away. And I think in Ghana lately, that's the case. We think that once we have the educational qualification, it's enough. But that's not it. The experience is important. The motivation is important. Your potential to go beyond where you are is important. And of course, the kind of competencies that you exude. So we'll move on and just take a quick look at what we would be expecting a good CV to have. So for you to have a good CV, our expectation is that you would have your own objective in there. Whether it's your career objective or a personal objective, we expect to see that in there. It tells a lot about the person. And if I make reference to our third speaker's point, Baba, she talked about personal branding. So that's where it starts from, right? What are your values? That's the opportunity for you to communicate your values. It's an opportunity for you to communicate what it is that you aspire to be, where you want to go, and how all of this fits in. Then, of course, your personal information is equally important. So yes, we are in an era of data privacy, but the minimum personal information that you can share, so that in case we need to reach out to you, we are able to do that. It's important to have that information. At least your email address should be there. Now we hardly use the postal address, but you can also use your GPS location if it's a permanent location. But the fastest way, to be fair, is your telephone number. Because when there's an opportunity and we are reaching out, is the one who responds quickly that sometimes gets the heads up or gets ahead of the curve. Of course, your educational qualification is important, because if we are looking for somebody with a minimum first degree and you have HND, what it then means is that you don't qualify. So we would want to see that as the baseline information that we are looking for. We want to see your interest or hobbies. So what are the things that interest you? What are the things that you do outside of work, outside of school? We want to have a fair understanding of that. And one other thing that sometimes we do, we all just put, I love football, I love singing, I love to read. I think that's the easiest one that everybody puts in. But when you ask the person, what was the last book you read? The person can't tell you. Or what did you learn from the last book and all of that. So don't just put anything for putting sake. It's important that whatever you put, be sure that questions will be asked and you should be able to answer them. Then, of course, we want to see if you are involved in any other extracurricular activities. So, for instance, you have people who join road tracts. Do we still have road tracts? How many of us are in road tracts? Not encouraging. Okay. But we are here as part of Obaasima Summit, right? Right? This is one way of building our capacity. The next time you can be part of the volunteer, you can volunteer to support this program as they run it. You can share your own experiences along the way with others, and that becomes some experience that you've gathered along the way. So it is important for you to highlight all those other things, volunteerism and all of that that you do along the way. It's important to highlight that, because all of those things will come in handy when you get into the interview. In fact, even before the interview, it can influence whether you'll be shortlisted or not. And of course, references. So one of the things that we learned, or I will use my own example, is we learned was that, oh, if you have a CV, you should have a reference. And then sometimes we go and put like 4 or 5 referees. And if you go and even ask the person, they can't even remember who you are. Please, pick people who know you, that can write about you. They can say things about you. It could be your priest at church. It could be your lecturer, maybe your supervisor who is working very closely with you on your project work. Use people who can attest to who you are. Don't just go and be writing people's names, and don't go and be giving us a tall list. The maximum we would need at any time is 2. But the red flags are if you have information that is conflicting. So sometimes you look on somebody's CV, the dates don't match. That's a problem. It tells that you don't pay attention to detail. So you look at it, either the person is lying or they don't pay attention to details. So it's important for you to check that. The way you organize your CV itself. Today, technology has made it simple. There are templates online. So you can go and get a template, but use it well so that you don't end up having somebody's information there, or just writing things because it will make your CV look good. What you write, for you who are early entry-level roles coming in with little experience, normally the questions come from your CV. What you write on the CV, that is where the questions will come from. The bulk of the questions will come from. So it's important for you to have that in mind. So I talked a bit about behavioral competencies, or when we are doing interviews, we would typically focus on the behaviors. The reason being that we are in a point where it's not just about the technical competency. So the second speaker talked, when she was talking about teamwork, she talked about the fact that you can have some leaders or some people come into a team, and it's like they just come and scatter everything. So we want to understand your behavioral competencies. We want to understand your job fit. So your fitness, you know, how well you can fit into the organization. So in terms of the job that you're applying for, is it a good fit for you to start with? There are times that we've interviewed people, maybe the person came for a sales role, and we figured out that this person is better off being in marketing. and we would recommend the person for a marketing role. That is if there's an opportunity. So there's also the need to have that job person fits, because it's important to have that. Then we also would look at the culture versus your values. So that's where that collaboration has to come in. What are the things that you stand for? And what does the organization stand for? So she talked a lot about integrity. So if the organization is talking a lot about integrity, compliance, controls, ethics, and then you don't have it, even if we bring you in, it's only a matter of time you'll be found out, unless you come in and change. But hardly would you see such things happen. So all of these are the things that we would look out for. And of course, the technical competency. But for new people, as I said, you are now coming fresh from school. We understand that you don't have a lot of experience, so it's difficult to measure the technical competency. What is most relevant in the initial stages is the organizational fit and the behavior competencies. So just to elaborate a bit more or interviews, we will do an assessment center. And in the assessment center, you do the aptitude test, which is individual, and then you come in and do a case study, and typically the case studies are group work. So you're given a scenario, you have to read through, and then you go off and do your work. Everybody is watching you. So the assessors are watching, and you're working together as a group. And all the things that our big sister talked about comes to play. They are part of the things that we assess. Whether you're working together as a team, whether you are focused on one goal, or everybody is going in different directions. All of these are things that we typically would look at. Then in terms of the motivation, I already talked a lot about that, so I'll not belabor it. And then the technical competencies. So depending on the function or the department that you are going to, there are certain key competencies that you need. You want to come to finance. We know that finance 0.04 is not the same as 0.4. And then your CV, you are miscommunicating the dates. The information is not aligned. There are errors, typographical errors everywhere. That in itself is a problem. Or you are even communicating figures and your figures are wrong. It's a problem. So for each of these departments, they have key competencies that they look out for in recruiting, and usually is highlighted in the job advert. So look out for those. What are the must-haves for the job? Look out for it in the job advert. So moving on into the interviewing skills, what are the key things or the key tips that you can take away that will help you to be successful? It's important to understand the questions that you are asked. So first of all, when you go in, of course, feel relaxed and everything, but it's not always easy. But when you are asked a question and you are not sure, ask for clarity. When you ask for clarity, it gives you also time to put your thoughts together. It doesn't mean all the time when they ask you the question, you say, pardon, no. But I think that you can gauge and know when to say, sorry, can you go over the question again? I didn't get you. And then they will try to rephrase it for you just so that you understand. And sometimes in trying to rephrase, you see that the answer is coming through. And then you can respond. So don't be in a hurry to give an answer in an interview. Take your time and make sure that you understand the question. Then you need to make sure that in answering the question, use what we call the STAR approach. So what's the STAR approach? What is the situation that, so when you're asked the question, tell me about a time where you had to deal with conflict. So in that question, when I'm going to respond using the STAR approach, I would say, well, I think I can use one example to share and to answer this question, if that's okay. I say, yes, go ahead. He said, I recall I was working in this group, so there was a group that we were working on a project. So that's the situation I've just created, okay? So we were working on a project. It was a group work that we were doing. And my role was, so I was the leader of the group. So that's the task that I was given, okay? And in that job that I was given, what was the action that I took? So what I did was first to organize the team together and to assign the tasks to everybody. And then in doing that, I had a challenge where somebody else kept undermining my authority. So in the scenario that I just painted, or the example that I gave, what I did was to first of all define the situation under which I had to deal with conflicts or potential conflicts. I had to tell them what my role or my task in that situation was, and I had to go on to tell them about the exact action that I had to take. So what was it that was happening? And then, so in explaining, I created a scenario and made sure that it was very clear what my role was in all of that. And then I conclude by saying, what I then did was to have an open conversation about the fact that I am the leader and how I got to be the leader, and to take their thoughts so that we could reset ourselves in terms of our ways of work. So what I've done is tell the situation, tell the task that was at hand, tell what the action was, okay, to be able to redeem the situation or whatever. And then finally, I'll give the outcome or the results. So what did I achieve? After that meeting, we were able to work together more smoothly, and where there were concerns, they were quick to raise the flag and we resolved them. So that is my story to answer that question, but it is very clear. It's not somebody's story that you have taken and you are telling. It is something that you experience yourself and you're talking about. And this can be a story within the work scenario. It can be within a certain group, your extracurricular activities, and all of that. But you need to see how it relates to the job. You need to see how it relates to the question that has been asked. And then you'll be able to use that approach. Your results won't always be positive. But even if it was a negative result, what is most important is what did you learn out of it? If you had the opportunity to do it again, what would you do differently? And once you do that, it goes to show somebody who has a growth mindset, somebody who is willing to learn from the situations that they find themselves in and do things differently. What are the common mistakes that we see during interviews for young graduates? You would see that sometimes people come into the interview, they are not prepared. So out of the blue, you get a phone call. We have this opportunity. You've been shortlisted for this role. Can you have an interview, say, tomorrow? Ideally, you should be given 48 hours. And then you know that tomorrow is not good for you. But you don't say anything. You say, okay, because you want the job. Sometimes you should be bold enough to say, is there an opportunity to push it to Thursday? It's a conversation. They may say okay, they may say no, but at least you would have given it a try. But even if you are given the notice and you accept, you should be prepared. You should know the position that you are applying for. So the person calls you that you are being shortlisted for an interview. They don't tell you the position. They don't share with you the job description. And then you say, okay, you come and sit there. You don't know anything about the position. That already is grounds for failure because you are not prepared. Everything they'll be asking you will be new. You won't know. And of course, I've already talked about the errors on the CV, so I won't go there. But that's also one of the things because it just raises a lot of questions and then we just keep going. And then sometimes on the CV, there's just too much information. Most of them irrelevant. So straight to the point, what are the key activities that you did? What were the achievements or the outcomes? That's it. And then, of course, there are some questions that you can be asked that will throw you off your feet. You are not prepared for those questions. You need to be able to think on your feet. But it doesn't mean you should lie if you don't know the answer. Don't lie. Be truthful. It's part of the things that we look out for. So just to quickly recap, it's important that as you prepare for an interview, first of all, you have to have a good CV. And when you do have a good CV, it's important that you have an understanding of the organization that's inviting you for the interview. You need to know a bit about their history, a little bit about the organization, what they do, and all of that. And then also you need to understand the role that you're applying for. You need to make sure that there are no errors. So you even if you have to share your CV with somebody to also just proofread it for you, do that. And then, of course, you can do mock interviews. You can have your sibling or your friend sit there and ask you questions, and then you try to answer, just playing it out to see. If you go on the internet, there's a lot of information there that you can find. And at the end of the interview, typically we'll have, if you have any question. Please, if you don't have any question, say you don't have any question. But sometimes you see people come, do you have a canteen here? Or, yes, I'm not saying that it's not a good question, but sometimes maybe you would have seen it whilst you were coming in. So just make sure that the questions you're asking is very impactful, because it also helps to portray you, helps with the personal branding. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Please, my question is it good to add activities that relate to the job description only, or to make a generalized activity in your CV? I'm asking this because you said when you come for an interview, maybe based on your CV, you applied for an HR role, let me put it that way, but then based on your CV, you'll be recommended for a sales role. So I'm asking, is it good to specifically include only activities, your past activities you've engaged in that relates to the job you're applying for, or you should make it a generalized activity? Thank you.
I would say it's a combination of both. So if you have activities that relate to the job, it's a plus. But if you don't have one that is very direct to the job and is general, it may just feed in somehow. So I would say if you have, put it there. Combination of the two.
Please, my name is Audrey, a student of GIJ. My question is, like, how do you answer the question in relation to salary? Maybe they ask you, how much would you want us to pay you? You can mention a figure and it may be too much. And if you also don't mention, it's kind of, you are demeaning yourself, or you don't know your real value. So how do you answer a question in relation to salary? And the second thing is it right to seek feedback after the interview, like ask the panel for feedback?
Okay, thank you. On the salary piece, the expectation is the organization, typically a well-established organization, will typically have their own structure that they will work with. But usually it's just to get a sense of where your headspace is. I think it's part of the preparation. You can try and find somebody who works within the organization so that you can get a fair sense of it. Even if not the same organization, you can try to gauge and see, okay, so a type of role like this, how much would be the going salary across, just so that you have a fair sense. It doesn't always mean that the amount that you mention is what you're given. On the other piece around asking feedback, you can ask for feedback. Typically, you'll be given feedback, but it would not tell you whether you were successful or unsuccessful, because definitely there'll be other people that they are talking to. Okay, so I think we will take the last and then, yeah.
Okay, please, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
The first question is, there are some people who are very good at writing CV. Like, they are so good at it, but then they don't have the qualifications. So as an HR, you go through that person's CV and you employ that person. And you later realize that person do not have the qualification written in the CV. How do you rectify it? And the second one is, concerning the interview, people have poor personality. They can't really speak out, but then they are good at what they do, but then they can't speak out. Do you give them an opportunity, or you just let them go?
Okay. So I'll start off the first one, right? You can be good at writing the CV. And as I said before, now we have technology that helps us to do that. But that is why there's also a process. There's a screening process. So we'll look at the CV. Maybe it's good, so you'll be shortlisted. But as you go through the interview, you should be able to speak to the things that you have written. So it's not just about the CV, picking it and then bringing you through. So the expectation is for you to have gone through. There would have been a rigorous exercise to ensure that you qualify to come in. On the speaking part of it, I think that there are different types of interviews, and it's also important for us to build our competencies, right, and confidence in terms of speaking out. That's why I said you can actually practice with somebody before you go in. More and more when you go for interviews, the panel try to make you comfortable. Sometimes they'll even crack jokes and all of that. But just in case you don't get that, you need to build your own confidence. And it comes from being confident in what you have put down and what you're going to say. If you have your things readily available, the things, your experiences, you know the things you've done, and you're speaking to it, you'll be more confident than if somebody has told you a story and you're coming to tell. So that's the last one, yeah?
Okay, my question is about the education side. There was a time I joined a CV master class with Joberman, and he said that in the course of the class, he said that with education, we don't have to necessarily state our JHS, as in where you schooled during with a basic education. You don't have to state it. But then you mentioned education, so I'm asking you too, that is it not necessary or we can add it?
I think you should just stick to the latest one. So if it's a first degree, I would stick to the first degree. Sometimes we can stretch it to the secondary school, but I wouldn't go beyond that. If it's a master's, it's better. But usually the latest, last two, I would say will be better. Yeah. But also just be mindful of the minimum requirements for the role.
Okay, so my question has to do with the salary.
Sorry, speak up.
My question has to do with the salary. Okay, sometimes you do know your worth, you do know... I
can't hear you.
Sometimes you do know your worth and you do know the salary to expect, but you don't have any experience. So you're not like, okay, should I say what they're expecting of me? Would I look like, okay, I have no experience, but yet I want this kind of pay? How do you go about that?
So I don't want to drag the session, but I would have asked the question. I still feel like asking the question if I'm allowed. How do you know your worth? Is it just from the education? It's a combination of the education and the experience. So you just need to weigh both options. But as I said, the fact that you say you want 4,000, for instance, doesn't necessarily mean that the focus will be on the 4,000, because there's a structure that typically the organization would be working with. Thank you very much.
Nobody is going away with that there's something wrong with beauty. There's nothing wrong with beauty at all. Like I'm saying, be beautiful, but be beautiful your way, not in conforming or contorting or, to fit a certain mold.
They talked about me a lot, and then Monday I'm on radio and I'm doing it. Opportunity. Regardless of where you're coming from, things can change, right? And then you can get to where you probably haven't even prepared yourself to go.
So there's an unconscious bias against us as women from the beginning of time.
You would have been perhaps the best lab scientist, but because of your mindset of knowing that nurse equals woman, you immediately went to nursing, you immediately went to midwifery.
a very, very, very necessary one. I would like to know how many people are in level 400. Level 400 students. And 300. 200. Freshers. The freshers who haven't even begun class yet. That's wonderful. It's important that you guys are equipping yourselves with how to face the job market. And so the 400s, please, don't go and throw the notes you've taken away. Because if you are to survive in the job market or getting a place in any institution, it will largely depend on your performance during your interview. And I have taken, a few notes for myself too. I am really enjoying this whole thing. I hope you are enjoying yourselves. I didn't mean the malt they were sharing. I meant the speakers and everything they are imparting on us. I hope you are enjoying yourselves. We don't like to make things boring. There is so much to learn from what the speakers are giving us, but we would also want to add up a little bit of entertainment. I love entertainment. And so we have somebody who's going to perform for us today. And something cool, something nice. But before that, you should know that Campus Base is here, and I know that everyone knows Campus Base. They are here, and they are taking coverage of everything that is going on. We have Radio Universe also here with us. We acknowledge them and appreciate their presence here with us. I'll give 5 minutes to a performer to do some wonders for us, and please help me welcome Elom GH. So Elom is going to come later, but right now we have Ofe, who is equally a very wonderful performer, and he's come to perform for us 5 minutes, and then we'll get back on track.
Nobody is going away with that there's something wrong with beauty. There's nothing wrong with beauty at all. Like I'm saying, be beautiful, but be beautiful your way, not in conforming or contorting or, to fit a certain mold.
They talked about me a lot. And then Monday I'm on radio and I'm doing it. Opportunity. Regardless of where you're coming from, things can change, right? And then you can get to where you probably haven't even prepared yourself to go.
So there's an unconscious bias against us as women from the beginning of time.
You would have been perhaps the best lab scientist, but because of your mindset of knowing that nurse equals woman, you immediately went to nursing, you immediately went to midwifery.
Nice to be back home. This is my alma mater, actually. Studied medical laboratory science here. But now I'm an artist. I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm here to sing for all the queens here. Hands up for a queen. Yeah, I'm here to sing for all the queens here. Can I share a story with you, please? So, how many of you are falling in love before? Anyways, I'm in love already, so I met this school. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So I met this queen somewhere, right? And I went close to her. I wanted to get with her, so I went close to her. And I was like, oh, baby girl, I say I love you back. Bring her close to me, make her right down. Never go do you one night stand. Girl, you just a be me, I wanna right from. I tell you some more, maybe you some more. Well, I guess some more, I need some more. Oh, Menyama di de day, Misaka ma di de day, oh, Menyama di de day, Vinya de ni, Menyama di de day, Misaka ma di de day, oh, Menyama di de day, Vinya de ni. Let's go Santorini, from there we go to Fiji, take you around the world, my baby girl, we no go tired. Let's go Santorini, from there we go to Fiji, take you around the world, my baby girl. So this girl looked at me and she told me, you don't know me from anywhere, and you're telling me you love me and want to take me around the world. So I told her, So this girl asked me, what about me do you like? And I told her, when you watch it, I won't care when you're running in any job. It's all about me and it's cool. What they may say, I wanna be new, babe. Oh, they will be new, babe. Oh, they will be new, babe. Oh, they will be new, babe. Am I the penny ching-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-long? Am I the penny tia? Yes, I penny fia. Am I the penny ching-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-long? Am I the penny tia? Yes, I penny fia. Ching-a-ling-a-bola-bola-tola-tola. Fia-fia ching-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a. Ching-a-ling-a-bola-bola-tola-tola. Mani a peno, mani a peno, mani a peno ching-a-ling, mani a peno everywhere. Nice. So this girl told me, what are you willing to do for me to like love you back? And I told her, baby girl, I go take bullets for you. I said, no, me one, no, me no, me two. You know what? Hold on. Are you hearing a story? I want to do something. I think I'm not hearing myself well, so I want you guys to help me do something. I tried it. I go take bullets for you. I say no be one, baby, no be two. I go take bullets for you. Make I protect you with my bullets proof. Oh, bullets for you. I say no be one, baby, no be two. Yeah. I go take bullets for you. Make I protect you with my bullets proof. Oh. Mind you, at this point, I didn't know the girl's name. So I asked her what's her name. Who can guess her name? She said her name is Melissa, so I was like, oh my darling Melissa, post me girl with a picture. If I no marry you in future, like a craze, I just wanna be a mister. So my darling Melissa, post me girl with a picture. If I no marry you in future, like a craze. And I was at the bar, so I saw a man walk from the bar side to the girl. And he asked the girl, baby, is someone worrying you? Is this guy worrying you? So I realized the girl had a boyfriend. And guess what happened? So I tried again. I tried. Come on. Hey. I tried it. So it was like, I go kill you, shot. Because I swear God, if I go kill them, rah, rah, rah. I go, would you like that to you? Rah, rah, rah. I go, would you like that to you? And I told him, I know one die, I know one buy, I know one buy, man. I won't enjoy, I won't buy motor, I won't build house, I still want to know, and I still want to know. And I say, my darling, Melissa, post me girl with every picture. If I'm to marry you in future, like a case, like a case. So the guy got so pissed, he gave me a dirty slap. And all the words in my head, I don't know, I just forgot everything. So he asked me what was my name. I tried it. I was like, Sampatama Putu, Sampatama Pepe, Sampatama Luku, Benze, Bogodi, I'm Bogodi, and Jogodi, Bogodi, and Jogodi, and Bogodi, Mrs. Sampatama Putu, Sampatama Pepe, Sampatama Luku, Benze. I say, scopa to mana, to da, and he say, you know this, da, kanko to pampa nanko don, sansa nanko don, pampa nanko don, santa nanko don, pampa nanko don, about to. It's a story. Thank you. Like I said, I'm here to sing for the queens. So please allow me to sing for the queens, yeah. Please hold on for me. When I meet my queens like this, I like to perform with them. So a year back, I had the chance to remake a Ghanaian classic with Pato Ranking and the original makers of the song, and I want to perform it for you guys, can I? Sure, but before I do it, I want to sing an a cappella. And I know you know the song, so when it gets to where you know, sing with me. I tried it. Baby girl, my baby girl, hey, baby I'm thirsty, give me water. I've been out, you know I love you, I be the matter. Say, no be say, I'm here to play, girl, or do your way. I'm here to stay. Or do your way. Kumasa, you tell me so, Domia. The best honeymoon you tell me. DJ, I think they're ready. Let's go. Increase it.
It's CT on the beat.
Baby girl, my baby girl. Hey, baby, I'm thirsty, give me water. I've been up. Hey, you know I love you, what can you matter? Say, love be say, everybody, I'm here to play. Yeah, or die away. I'm here to stay. I'm back to my bed, but let me with you. Come on, I'm doing talking to my side. One time. Hey, everybody. Looks like this DJ doesn't want me to get paid though. Anyways, thank you so much for having me. My name is Sofair. You can find me on social media, Fair Music. Big shouts to everyone.
That was a beautiful one. Because I am not a musician, you guys are not singing to help me. Okay, I see. But that was a beautiful one, and he deserves another round of applause if you don't agree. So we are going to continue with the program, and we have some other speakers. Today we have a total of 7 speakers. We have done 4 so far, so we have 3 more to go. Remember, there are going to be some questions and answers that are going to win people pieces of cloth. And so, be prepared. If you want to leave here Sakura, that's fine. But if you want to leave here with a piece of cloth, and the men, you're also part, you know, once you answer the questions correctly, you are good to go.
Nobody is going away with it.